This is a buttonhole foot and it looks quite scary, and if you have been avoiding it in your machine feet selection, don't worry about it. I have got you covered in this video. I'm going to show you exactly how to use one of these. Now, very quickly, don't click away. If you have got a machine that says it is a 4-step buttonhole maker, this is not the video for you. So you can step away now and find another video for a 4-step buttonhole maker. But if your machine says it is a 1-step buttonhole maker, then and you have one of those, then this is exactly the video that you need to learn how to use these. There are a few things we need, so I'm going to cover those first. But who am I? I am Kim. This is Quilt with Kim. You, my lovely, are very, very welcome. So let's find out what we need first of all before we get making our buttonhole. Before we start, we need a few supplies, so let's have a look at those. You need your button of choice. I've got 3 sizes here just to show you in a little bit how they work, but get the size of button that you want to be using. I am using this orange fabric to pretend it's my project, but anyway, I suggest when you are practicing that you practice on spare fabric first, and even when you are confident with using your buttonhole foot, you still get some practice in on a scrap of fabric first to make sure that it turns out okay before you go onto your actual project. So I am using this orange fabric to practice with, 3 sizes of button. Next, you obviously need your buttonhole foot. Depending on your machine, this will either be smaller or larger. They generally don't get much larger than this, but it might be a different size, so you need one of those. You will need a seam ripper, yes. You will need one of those because we have to make the hole after. Now, don't go away after you've learnt the buttonhole, because there is a little tip on making the hole that you will want to stick around for. So that's the seam ripper. And you need this. What is this? This is stitch and tear stabilizer. It is like paper, and it comes off the roll. It comes in packets of 1 meter squared. It is really cheap and it is really useful to have in your sewing room. So I've got a square of this around. The idea is that it stabilizes your fabric, so you put it underneath your fabric when you are stitching. So if you're doing something like satin stitch or a close zigzag stitch, or any of the fancy decorative stitches, and you're going backwards and forwards, putting the stabilizer underneath your fabric will help your machine to take that. And making a buttonhole is no exception, because your machine is making a lot of little small stitches close to each other. And you are going to need some pins. So that's that. We've got our machine. My machine is threaded up. The needle that I have got in my machine is an 80/12. The needle that you will be choosing will be the right needle for the size of your ultimate project that you're going through. Obviously, a thicker project means a bigger needle, a thinner project means a smaller needle. Okay, so let's switch over to the machine. Now we've got our supplies at the ready. I'm going to show you this first bit a little bit out of sequence, but there is a reason, because I'm obviously teaching you how to do this, and sometimes I just need to swap the order around a little bit to show you. All will become clear. The first thing that you need to know is how to attach your buttonhole foot, because it looks a little bit scary, doesn't it? It's really long. You've got all this hole here with these markings. There's your little bar that attaches to the presser foot holder, or the ankle as I like to call it. And then this bit here, can you see it slides up and down, or backwards and forwards? This is where your button will actually sit. I'm going to take this back off in a moment to show you how to do that. But for now, just know that's where your button will fit. And what happens is when the button goes in, your machine knows what size to make your buttonhole. But first, let me just show you how to attach this to your machine, and then we can sort out the button afterwards. So we'll take our normal foot off. So let's get rid of that, put that somewhere safely. And then this bit here, with that slidey bit where the button goes, that goes towards the back of your machine. And then this little bar is the bit that attaches to your presser foot holder. Then we'd position this little bar underneath your little presser foot holder, where it grabs the bar, this little section here. And instead of raising the foot up, because that's a bit fiddly, leave the presser foot, the buttonhole foot, actually on the base plate of your machine and lower that little presser foot holder into position. And as I lower it down, it will click into place. If it doesn't quite click into place, you might need to just maneuver it about a little bit to get it into position. But lowering the presser foot holder onto your presser foot, whether it's the buttonhole foot or any other of the presser feet, is a lot easier way than trying to lift it up into position. That is in position, and that is where we need it to be. So this little hole with the crosshairs on it is at the front, and that little slidey bit is at the back. Now I want to show you how the button goes in, and I need to take this off to show you how to do that. The first thing that we're going to do is put our button in our buttonhole. So I've obviously had to take the buttonhole foot off the machine to show you that. Now, can you remember that this slidey bit goes towards the back of the machine? So at the moment it's at the top of your screen. You can see over on the left here, we've got two little bits of plastic jutting out with a little gap in the middle. And what we are going to do is push that top one away from us. So our little slidey bit where the button will go opens up and moves away from us. And it is probably a good idea to open it up as far as you can if you've got a bigger button. Now, what happens is when you have got the button in here, this gap, whatever size button we've got, this gap tells the machine how big to make your buttonhole, because there's a little thing that we have to set on our machine to tell it to do that gap. Don't worry, all will become very clear. So what we're going to do is choose the button that we want. I'm going to choose this middle one, and we're going to put it, sit it on that little platform, and we're going to slide. I'm doing this looking at the screen rather than looking at what I'm doing because I can't see it underneath my camera. We're going to put that button in position and we're going to close it up. Okay, let me do that again for you. So we've opened it up as far as we can. We put the button in position. We lay it on that little flatbed, if you like, and we push and we close that button in so it's nice and secure. If I turn it over, it shouldn't fall out. There we go. So that's what we want. Now, of course, let's take that out. If we have a bigger button, there is a maximum button size that you'll be able to fit in your buttonhole foot. So this one's quite a big button, and that's really taking our buttonhole to the maximum. If you've got bigger machines, they may take a bigger buttonhole, but generally there is a maximum size. And then if we've got a small button like a shirt button, we do the same thing. We'll hold it in place while we secure it in place, and you can see here that the gap has got a little or a lot smaller. Okay, so whatever size of button you want, that's the first thing that you need to do. Let me put my button back into position. I find it a lot easier to put my button in position first before I attach my foot. So I'm going to put this back under my machine exactly as I did before. I just need to be a bit careful because I've got a button in it, and I'll meet you back on my machine. So remember, the claw comes down onto this little bar here, with the button will be facing the back of our machine. So the foot is back on the machine again. Don't worry that it tips down like this, just don't worry about that. Our button is in position facing the back of the machine, and there is one little bit that you need to do before we do anything else. If you look at your machine, just underneath here there is a little pulley down thing. I don't know what else to call it. It is a pulley down thing. If I pull that down, you may not have noticed it's on your machine if you haven't done a buttonhole, but we need to pull that down. And what happens is we need to make sure that it is in between those two bits of plastic. Can you remember when we pulled our little bit of jutting out plastic to fit our button in? That's here. I know it's a bit difficult to see, but that's here. And then the front bit, let's get this thread out of the way, the front one is here. So you've got a gap there, that's the size of our button, and this pulley down thing has to fit in the middle of those two jutting out plastic bits. It's very technical, this, isn't it? It's not a case of in the middle literally, but it needs to move between those two plastic bits. It has to move in that gap. So we want to make sure that it is to the left, as you're looking at it now, to the left hand side of that, the first little plastic bit, or if you're facing front on, it'll be behind it. So if I move my camera around 1 second, there we go. Right, can you see that there's your pulley down thing, and it is behind this front little plastic stopper there. Okay, so that's the bit that most people miss, is pulling that down. All right, so if you make sure that you've done that and get that into position, and now we need to have a quick look at your buttonhole stitches on your machine. All machines will have a slightly different place where they show you your decorative stitches. This particular machine has got a separate pattern holder. Some machines are actually in the little lid on the top of the machine, so it just depends on the machine that you've got. And as you probably know, all these show you the different patterns that you can have, and then what numbers that you have to press for the pattern that you particularly want, or the stitch you want. In our case, we want one of the buttonhole stitches, which are down here. So can you see this particular one on this machine is a number 58, and then we've got 59 all the way up to, what's that, 67, and they're all sort of manner of different types of buttonhole and how they look like, and it really depends on what you are making as to which one you choose. That's not the subject for this video, I just want to show you how to make it. So I am going to choose a very simple one. I'm going to choose the first one, the 58 here. So what we'll do is program our machine in exactly the same way as we choose any other stitch, and we'd put the number of our stitch in. So I'm going to do that now. So we'll press that, and then 58. And you can see on my little LCD display that I have got an image of the buttonhole that I'm going to make, and it tells me that I need my buttonhole foot on, which I have done, and we've got our stitch width and stitch size. I'm not going to bother changing those for this one. Okay, so we've set our machine. Now we need to get everything in place to do our stitching. Remember your stabilizer? This is where this comes into action. So we get our little stabilizer piece, and we're going to put it behind the fabric that we're going to put our buttonhole on. And all I'm going to do is stick a couple of pins in place just to hold it. You don't need very much pinnage. Is that a word, pinnage? Okay, so I've just pinned that in place to stop it moving about. Now, just a little tip. I didn't say grab a pencil at the beginning, but we've all got pencils hanging around. A really good idea is to put a little pencil mark or a little disappearing air erasable pen mark where you want your the bottom of your buttonhole to be. Now, on dressmaking patterns or on any patterns where buttons go onto it, you'll find a symbol that looks like that, that looks like an eye, and that is where your buttonhole goes, and that is the top of your buttonhole and the bottom of your buttonhole. So you'd put your pencil mark at the bottom of where the buttonhole marking is from your pattern. So for now, and for practicing, I'm just going to put a little line there. It doesn't have to be that big, it's just enough for you to be able to see. I'm making it bigger so that you can see it, but in real life, you just probably want a little tiny, a little tiny mark that's just big enough for you to see under your machine. Okay, so this is going to be the bottom of my buttonhole. Then what happens is this little line here goes underneath the crosshairs. Do you remember these ones of that little hole at the front? Can you see here where you've got some lines going across, and you've got a little line in the middle? Now, the bottom of your buttonhole lines up with those lines there. So this line that we've just drawn will line up through this little hole with that, these little markings here on your buttonhole foot, which is why we need to draw a little line that's just big enough for you to see through that little hole. It doesn't need to be any bigger than that. And then this line here on your buttonhole foot is the center of your buttonhole. So remember this little shape here of the buttonhole marking that you'd get on patterns, that would really be how you'd set it up. So that line there would match up to this little line in the middle of your button foot. Can you see that? So on this eye shape, the bottom of the eye lines up with those markings, and that downward vertical line would line up with this middle marking here. Okay, so we are going to put this underneath the machine. This is a spare buttonhole foot from another machine, just in case you were wondering. So let's get this underneath the machine. All right, so we're going to slide that underneath, and I'm going to move that pencil line so it is in position in my little hole. I'm going to move my camera so that you can see. So it's going to be a bit wobbly for a moment. And let's let's see if I can zoom in. I don't know if I can get any closer than that. If I just waggle that up and down, sorry, I know it's a bit blurry. Look into that little hole. Can you see that I'm on orange there? And as I move, can you see that it goes a bit darker suddenly where the line comes into view? It's not very easy to show on camera, but that's where you want it to be, is that line lining up with your little crosshairs in there. So let me put my camera back and get it all positioned up. There we go. Right, so my little pencil line is in the middle of that little hole. It's lined up with those little crosshairs, and I'm going to lower that presser foot down. So what I can see in there is my pencil line, and if you look very closely, you can see it's a little bit darker. I know that's difficult to see, but my pencil line is in the middle there. Okay, having done that, you'll notice this thread is on the top. I can't do very much about that. The instructions in the manual say it needs to be underneath, but I just think it's a bit fiddly, and I've never had a problem with it being on top. So that's just my little tip for you. And then at this stage, if we've got everything else set up, so remember that lever needs to be down. It's in position just behind this first little jutty out bit. You've got your required buttonhole stitch set on your machine. Then we are going to lower the needle. Okay, oops, knocking everything. I'm going to hold on to this, and then I'm going to just sew in the normal way. What will happen is your machine will then stitch that buttonhole, and then it will finish when it's finished. Okay, so you don't need to do anything other than keep your foot on your foot pedal. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hold on to this so it doesn't get tangled up. Meanwhile, my foot pedal has got all tangled up. Okay, so we're going to go at a nice steady pace. So it does a little lock stitch and it will move over, and you don't need to do very much else really other than sit and watch it. Okay, I'm just going to stop there for a moment, because now I can get my seam ripper and very carefully pull that out. And I have the world's biggest scissors, but now I can cut that off and we can resume. Okay. Generally, with the stabilizer in place, we don't have to hold it, but just in case it's going a bit loopy, you want to make sure that it's not going off at a tangent, but it should be okay. So can you see it? It did a couple of up and down lines, and now it's doing a very small, like a satin stitch. So that's the left-hand edge of our buttonhole that we're making at the moment. Now it's going along the top, it's coming down with a straight line. It's doing that little curvy bottom of this particular design of buttonhole. Other buttonholes might go straight across, it just depends on the design. And you can see that it's going all the way back up with that little sort of satin stitch. I'm not doing anything with my hands, by the way, they're just here. Okay, that is the machine stopping on its own. I haven't stopped my foot. So that is it finished. I'll take my foot off the pedal. I am going to just cut the thread. And let's take that out. And there we have the buttonhole, but we're not quite finished yet because we have to make the hole. All right, so let me just get the camera back into position and show you that. You can see here we've got the shape of the buttonhole. So this is the front. If there are any loose threads, you can just snip those off. If we turn it over onto the back, you can see that it looks nice and neat on the back. Nothing's puckered or pulled. And we've got some loose threads there, which I can just snip off. Don't need those. Now for the next bit, I still am going to keep my stabilizer. I cannot say that word. Keep my stabilizer in place. I've just found it makes life an awful lot easier at this next section when we're making the hole. So what you're going to do is get a pin. Let's get a slightly longer pin. And we're going to put it in our fabric. Can you see here at the top of your buttonhole, just below that top bar, that is where your pin is going to lie. Can you see that? So we don't want it on the bar necessarily. We don't want it this side above it. We want it just below that top bar, because otherwise when we make a hole we will cut through that, and we do not want that to happen because we will all cry if that happens. So I'm going to put my pin just in position underneath that top bar. Okay, so you can see that. You can't see it on the top, but it is there on the bottom, and you can see where that is laying there if I can get the camera to focus. So there's the pin and there's the bar. Now what I'm going to do is get my seam ripper. You want a nice sharp seam ripper. Fun fact, seam rippers do go blunt after a while, so it is a good idea to replace them every few years or so, because mine gets a lot of use. I don't know about yours. We are going to use this pointy bit of our seam ripper, this bit here, and we're going to go in at the bottom of our buttonhole as we're looking at it. You are not going to have this gigantic line, by the way. Remember, that was just for me to show you. You will have a tiny little line which will have disappeared underneath the bottom of your buttonhole. So don't worry about all of this pencil marking. So I am going to press into there. Be careful of your fingers the other side. All right, so you're through. Let me show you the back. Can you see there? It's poking through in the middle of our buttonhole, just at the back here. And we're going to carefully slide up. And this is why it's done it already. This is why we have this stabilizer at the back, because it helps this process and makes it a lot easier and a lot easier to control. And we have that pin because, as you saw, my seam ripper shut up there and the pin stops it. You do not want to go any further because otherwise you will slice through the top of your buttonhole, and you do not want that to happen. So that there is our buttonhole. So you can see we've now got a hole in the middle. Let's test it out with our button. I'm going to take the pin off. I'm going to release my button from the back of the buttonhole foot. And as we poke it through, oops, we can see here that our button will go through our buttonhole. Yes, result. Okay, so we've now got a buttonhole. Now the last thing that you need to do is take the stabilizer off. Let me show you that just very quickly before we go. Now the last thing we need to do is take our stabilizer off. So I'm going to quickly unpin that stabilizer, and then you can see here where it's attached at the back. We need to be quite careful. What we don't want to do is just yank it, because you'll pull those stitches out. So tear this. This is where the tearing stabilizer comes into its own. As you come past the stitch lines, just put your hand down on it or your finger down on it and hold it. And we just want to be gentle as we pull it away. And there you will have your buttonhole. And yes, you can definitely get a pair of tweezers or something and pick any excess away. Generally, just as an aside, you will have interfacing on the back of any buttonhole stitching that you're doing. If you're dressmaking, you would definitely have interfacing there. Depends if you're making cushions, you might have interfacing, or you might have doubled up fabric. Okay, so just be aware it won't necessarily be on the back of just a straight bit of fabric. But that, you can tidy up all your loose threads, but that is how to make your buttonhole stitch. There we go, nice and easy, isn't it? If this has helped, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And I have just opened up channel memberships on this channel, so if you'd like to support the channel and get a little bit deeper with me, so with some all sorts of perks, check out the channel memberships below, and I will look forward to seeing you in there. If not, I will love you and leave you for now, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.